It's your buddy Sid Rosenberg, and yeah, I'm famous. But guess what? So is my guy Mike. I love him. And his son Michael at Genesis of Brooklyn. This is not your typical dealership. Trust me, I've been there. It's a gorgeous place. The service, legendary. Brooklyn family values, baby. That's what I'm talking about. Free valet pickup up to 25 miles. Current year Genesis loaners. 3 years of maintenance included. Transparent, efficient, respectful. The best luxury service around. Genesis of Brooklyn. These are my guys, Mike and Mike. More luxury, less money.
Mint is still $15 a month for premium wireless. And if you haven't made the switch yet, here are 15 reasons why you should. 1, it's $15 a month. 2, seriously, it's $15 a month. 3, no big contrast. 4, I use it. 5, my mom uses it. Are you playing me off? That's what's happening, right? Okay, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan. $15 per month equivalent required. New customer offer first 3 months only. Then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
The Stone Zone. Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back into the Stone Zone. Joining me now is Peter Antico. Peter is a macroeconomic scholar with a deep understanding of the rapidly changing velocity of capital and its effects on the global marketplace. Peter has two passions, finance and film. In fact, you may not know this, but you've seen Peter because his film credits as an actor include The Creators, where he played opposite Gerard Depardieu, Bruce Payne, and William Shatner. He was also in Oliver Stone's Wall Street 2, portraying a hedge fund manager. The Other Guys with Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg. Black Dynamite, The Hunt for Red October, Con Air, Lethal Weapon 3, and Time Cop 2. Antico has had memorable roles in such films as 29th Street with Danny Aiello and Motorcycle Gang, directed by John Milius. Now, Peter and I are both members of the Screen Actors Guild and the American Federation of Television and Radio Artists, known as SAG-AFTRA. As I said in the earlier portion of the show, Ronald Reagan was a former president of the Screen Actors Guild, and it is one of the small pieces of trivia that I know that Ronald Reagan is actually the only union president to ever become president of the United States. So, Peter, welcome to the Stone Zone.
Thank you very much.
There are two reasons for a union to exist. One is to ensure fair wages and working conditions, as well as a strong pension and health plan. Has our union delivered on those mandates?
No, they haven't. In fact, only 10% of our members out of 160,000 even earn the $28,000 necessary per year to qualify for health care. That's the lowest in union history, which is a function of very poor contract negotiations starting back from 2008 until present. And you also should note that our good staff, earns 3 times the pension payout. They earn $280,000 a year as a cap. And members like Tom Cruise or Tom Hanks and George Clooney, the maximum they can earn is $96,000 per year. So our union has now been co-opted, running by the staff for the benefit of the staff, and the members are getting shut out.
Now, Donald Trump, who was also a member because of the enormous popularity of The Apprentice, plus having appeared in numerous films and in memorable cameos, was ejected from the union. That was spearheaded, as I recall, by the union president, Gabriel Carteris, based on hearsay when he was going through impeachment proceedings. And, of course, ultimately he was exonerated. Tell me about that. It sounds to me like our union is extremely politically correct.
What our union is an entertainment union and a labor union across the country. And we've always mandated, since back to Ed Asner, not to be political, because obviously there's tax credits in many different states. And if you're either on the Democratic or the Republican side, if you anger those kinds of people, you could lose that kind of funding, which would damage the employment opportunities for our members. In regard to Mr. Trump, President Trump, getting thrown out of the union or ejected, it was based upon hearsay. They stated that he was damaging the broadcasters because he was calling a lot of them out for the false reporting that they were doing. And it's interesting because it usually works as we have a disciplinary committee. But the president, Gabrielle, took it to the national board because I believe she didn't want to single herself out, because I believe that she feared getting litigated against for defamation of character. And the board voted to eject him except for 8 members that voted no. I was one of the people that voted no, simply because there was a lack of due process. I mean, you have to let the accuser appear, and you have to provide evidence. And so this was a kangaroo court that was basically voted on for political reasons, because classically our union presidents, they spend time in Washington with the Democratic Party, with Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. And during this time, it was very contentious in the country. So this was going through, when Mr. Trump was going through a trial and then got exonerated, they should have apologized, and they didn't do that. They basically threw him out because of lack of due process. And my issue is due process. Everyone in this country, Democrat or Republican, is mandated to have due process. You can't be judge, jury, and executioner. It's highly unethical and political. And let me make a note. Jesse Smollett, who committed that hate crime, all the broadcasters in that room supported that. Kamala Harris supported that. And they said everybody rallied around that. Then it was false. There was a complaint made against Mr. Smollett to have him disciplined. It took them 3 months, and they did nothing. So it appears like it's a double standard at our union, and that's the facts on that particular case. I think they should be federally investigated for their actions because they're highly unethical.
So, as I recall reading, 8,200 senior performers got kicked off of their health care benefits from the union in the middle of the pandemic, and you were among those who litigated against the health plan trustees, to include the National Executive Director. The case ultimately settled for $20.6 million for the benefit of these senior performers. Talk to me about that.
Okay, so what happened in this? In the 2020 collective bargaining agreement, the contract negotiation, Duncan Crabtree Ireland, our executive director, and a political party called Unite for Strength, which represents the majority of our national board, put out propaganda that stated $54 million was negotiated into our pension and health. When I first heard that, I jumped up and down and said, that's phenomenal. But they used that to actually sell the contract. But what they withheld was that 75% of that $54 million was picked from actors' pockets and taken and moved over from their cost of living raises. So a gain is only a gain if the opposing party foots the bill, and they didn't do that. 2 weeks after they voted that contract up in 2020, 8,200 seniors were kicked off the plan because our national executive director, Duncan Crabtree Ireland, failed to inform our negotiating committee that the health plan was in financial trouble, and he is a trustee of that plan. He breached his fiduciary duty. So I initiated a lawsuit for the benefit of the seniors against the trustees of the health plan, which included Duncan Crabtree Ireland. And the case was ultimately settled for 20.6 in favor of the seniors. Now, I want to let you know that Fran Drescher called it frivolous. She was the president. The entire opposing party called it frivolous. But in a court of law, we were proven correct. And to add insult to injury, 3 weeks ago, there was a netcode contract, and Duncan is a trustee on AFTRA's retirement fund. He came to the board and stated that AFTRA's retirement fund was in financial trouble, and if we didn't put money into it, that the trust agreement would have to be reorganized, and that means it basically could go bankrupt. He did this again with no notice. So that is an additional breach of fiduciary duty. He did it twice. I mean, if you did it once, maybe you're going to forgive somebody and say it was a mistake, but it wasn't. He did it twice. That's why I believe the union should be federally investigated, because I believe there's a lot of nefarious, salacious behavior in regard to our finances that have actually destroyed the infrastructure and the benefits that do the members of our union.
As I understand it, you are a candidate for Secretary-Treasurer of the union. Do you believe the election process will be fair for candidates who are not well-known celebrities?
Well, no, I actually don't, because here's how most people don't understand this. They charge national candidates money if we want to send an email out to the entire membership during the election season. So it costs me $4,900 right now to send one email out to the national membership. It costs me $2,400 to send one email to California, Los Angeles branch, and it costs me another $1,100 to send one to New York. But here's the rub. Most of my emails, 70% of them went to spam. I filed a complaint with the Department of Justice and the Department of Labor because they coded the emails incorrectly, and they used a company called iContact, which is a bulk email spammer that's on the blacklist for spamming people. And then they put the word campaign in the headers, and it goes to many of the email server spam. So I gave the board, I gave the governance department the technical specs on how they screwed up. And wouldn't you know it, 5 days later they came back and wrote me a letter and stated that we inadvertently miscoded the emails, and then they stated that only 107 of them would be resent. And I said that's technologically impossible. When you're sending out a bulk email, once it goes to the server and you push send, it goes out to all email inboxes. So out of all the people I polled, 9 in New York, 9 out of 11 I just started, and 8 out of 10 went to the spam folders. So how are members going to have a fair election if the members at large in the entire country get 70% of the emails go to spam? That's not fair. Everyone should be able to hear your financial platform and your policies and what you're going to do to protect the members. And then that's fair, but they didn't do that, and that's why I also believe they need to be federally investigated. Furthermore, I'm reading information from Free the Vote or True the Vote that these voting machines can be hacked, and though they're mail-in ballots, when they put them in the machines, they have to be watched. And this really has to be done, correctly with people there that understand how this works. And I really would wish someone from True the Vote would be there to make sure there's no routers operating, because they shouldn't be connected to any internet and any routers, nor using any SBA ports to plug into those machines, or the votes can be changed. So this was just brought to my attention 4 days ago, and I didn't know this, but I'm bringing it to your attention because SAG-AFTRA has not been run fairly. It's not transparent. They don't give information to the members, and they censor information that would cause the membership, to rise up and vote and create new leadership. Because, respectfully, our pension funding from 2014 to 2024 has gone down 0.5% to 1.5% a year, and that's for 10 years. And then, as I said before, the health care is only 10% people that qualified. So if you look at the financial metrics, that doesn't lie. The union has been failing from a financial point of view. So you really have to look at it pragmatically and just look at the data, because the data speaks for itself.
Well, I hate to tell you this, but I think you were subjected to what we call a political dirty trick. We saw this in the elections. Google did this regularly. I tracked it in 2016. If Hillary Clinton put out a blast email, it was classified in such a way that it had about a 90% delivery rate. Yet if Donald Trump's campaign put out a blast email, say a press release, 90% of those would go to the spam file. And we actually proved this at the time. It's just one of the ways that they cheat. It's going to be very interesting because Tulsi Gabbard, who is the Director of National Intelligence, is currently looking at classified documents regarding the efficiency, the effectiveness, and the integrity of these computerized voting machines. As you know, she's already made stunning revelations about the so-called Russian collusion hoax. And I think she's now turned her attention to the election process of 2020 to see whether we had a fair, honest election. A lot of people waiting with bated breath for her report. She's shown stunning courage so far in terms of exposing the fact that the Russian collusion hoax narrative was exactly that, a fraud upon the American people. It was nothing less than the greatest single dirty trick in American political history. It was an abuse of power in which the full authority of the U.S. government and the incredible capability of our intelligence agencies were used to try to undo the results of a fair election, the 2016 election. Whether anybody's going to be held responsible for that, well, that remains to be seen. All right, I want to thank our guest, Peter Antico. I want to also wish you the very best, Peter, in your upcoming election. Sounds to me like you've got an uphill fight, but also I can tell just on the basis of this interview that you are a fighter and that you will never quit when it comes to doing the right thing.
Yep. Thank you very much, Roger. And lastly, I'd just like to say that if anybody didn't turn in their ballot today, please mail your ballot. Vote your heart based upon the information you get. And I pray that everyone that's listening, go to your spam email folders and look for my letters to the membership. One was on August 15th, and one was on September. It was last Friday on the 5th, but the one I wrote before that to the national membership was 2 weeks before that. Check your spam filters because people are voting without the information to know my financial stance. And I would appreciate an ethical and fair election, and I sincerely appreciate this interview. Thank you.
All right. Don't go away, folks, because we'll be right back.
Thanks for listening to The Stone Zone with Roger Stone. You can hear The Stone Zone with Roger Stone weeknights at 8 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?